Hello students, this is your lecturer Mallesh and I am going to deal you today the second unit, that is Oh Dear, and it is written by Leo Tolstoy. As the title itself indicates, it doesn't mean lovingly, but it means very expensive, very costly. Okay. When we come to this lesson in detail, we will come to know what is the significance of this title 2 Dear. When the procedures in the courts will be delayed, what would happen? So such is the case with this lesson. And the lines run like this. Near the borders of France and Italy, on the shore of Mediterranean Sea, lies a tiny little kingdom called Monaco. Many a small country town can boast more inhabitants than this kingdom, for there are only about 7,000 of them all told. And if all the land in the kingdom were divided, there would not be an acre for each inhabitant. But in this toy kingdom, there is a real kinglet, and he has a palace, and courtiers and ministers and bishops and generals and an army. Hey friends, here the author is going to describe about a small country, Monaco, by name Monaco, and it is a very small kingdom, a teeny kingdom, and it is also called a toy kingdom, as how the children used to play with the toys. Likewise, that means it is a very small kingdom. Even though it is a small kingdom, there is a real kinglet, and there are courtiers, there are ministers, and there are bishops, and also generals for the army, and it has a small army. So this is the case with Monaco. This is the description of the country Monaco. It is situated near the borders of France and Italy, and it is a toy kingdom, and altogether there are 7,000 people, there are 7,000 inhabitants. That means 7,000 population, only 7,000 population was there, and so it was called a tiny kingdom. If at all the whole population was divided, there would be not than more 1 acre for each inhabitant. So such was the kingdom. That means it was a very small kingdom. Even though it is a small kingdom, there was a real king. He has a palace, courtiers, ministers, bishops, general, and an army. It is not a large army. Don't think that it was a large army. It was only about 60 men in all. That means army was consisting of 60 men only. There were only 60 men. There were only 60 soldiers in the army. But still it is an army. Still we can say that it is an army. There are also taxes in the kingdom. As how a king can lead his kingdom. He has to leave the taxes. He has to leave the taxes on the people so that he can rule the kingdom. So there were taxes in the kingdom, namely a tax on tobacco, taxes levied, tax on tobacco, wine, spirits, and poll tax. It is a poll tax is a tax levied on an individual. Tobacco, wine, and spirits means alcoholic beverages. So as the people were very fond of these things, these taxes were very popular, and these were the only taxes in the country Monaco. But though people there drink and smoke as people do in the other countries, there are so few of them that drinks would have been hard food to eat, to feed his courtiers and officials, to keep himself, if he had not for the new and special source of revenue. That means there was a need of special revenue apart from these taxes. This special source of revenue comes from gaming house. Apart from these taxes, there was a special source of revenue from gaming house. This was a special source of revenue. Special source of revenue from gaming house, where people play roulette, where people used to play cards. People play, and whether they win or lose, keeper always gets a percentage on the turnover, and out of the spirit, out of the profits, he pays a large sum to the prince. The reason he pays so much is that it is the only such gambling establishment left in the Europe. So Monaco had the monopoly of this gaming house, which was left in the Europe. It was the only establishment which was conducting the gaming house throughout the Europe. Some of the little German sovereigns used to keep gaming houses of the same kind. Before that, the Germans, in Germany too, there was a gaming house. But some years ago, they were forbidden to do so. But some years ago, the government banned it. The government clearly banned the gaming house, the gambling house. But some years ago, they were forbidden to do so. The reason they were stopped, because these gaming houses did so much harm. That means, these gaming houses were giving the profit to the kingdom, of course, but apart from that, they did much harm to the common people, not for the prince. A man would come and try his luck. Playing a roulette or game of cards it is a chance factor. It is trying his luck, whether he wins or loses. See, then he would risk all the money he had. Whatever the money he had, he would try to lose it. That too, and then in despair, he would drown or shoot himself. When he could not win the money through the gaming house, in despair, he would get down, he would drown, or he would shoot himself. So the Germans forbade their rulers. The people forced the rulers to stop this, as the common people were getting harm from this gaming house. So the Germans forbade their rulers to make money in this way. Making money in this way is not a good thing. So they convinced the rulers to stop this. But there was no one to stop the Prince of Monaco. So Monaco was the only establishment which was left in the Europe, and it remained with the monopoly of this business. This business was kept only with the Kingdom of Monaco. So now everyone who wants gambling, he goes to Monaco. Whoever wants to go, he directly goes to Monaco. Whether they win or lose, the prince gains by it. The prince gains by the percentage which the owner of the gaming house would give to the prince. The prince says that you can't earn stone palaces by honest labor. One cannot build such monument by his honest labor, by his honest perspiration. Someone has to put a hand for this type of dirty business. So so that one can build a big monument. Only with the perspiration no one can build such a monument. So this is a proverb. So the king thinks like this. As the proverb says, and the kinglet of the Monaco knows it is a dirty business. Even though he knows that it is a dirty business, what to do? What he is to do? He has to live. He has to feed his courtiers. He has to feed his generals. He has to feed his army. So he lives and reigns in the money and holds his court with all the ceremonies of real king. As the ceremonies of the real king will be done, in such a way, he was living happily. He has his coronation, he lives, he rewards, sentences, he pardons, and also he reviews councils, laws and codes of justice, just like other kings, and just like other kings do. The same procedures are having with the king of Monaco. Only in a smaller portion. As it is a small kingdom, it was. Then, now it happened a few years ago that a murder was committed in Monaco. In this toy kingdom, in this toy princess domain, a murder was committed. See, a terrible thing. A murder was committed. The people of the kingdom are peaceable. See, the people who were living in this kingdom are very peaceable. Such a thing had not happened before. This kind of thing, a murder, was not at all done earlier. The judges assembled with much ceremony and tried the case in the most judicial manner. There were judges, prosecutors, and the jurymen and the barristers. As the procedures of the courts, so all the judges, prosecutors, jurymen, along with the criminal, they assembled, they argued and judged, and at last they condemned the criminal to have his head cut off. That means his head to be cut off. That means he was given the death sentence. He has to be hanged. That was the punishment. So far so good. Next, they submitted the same sentence before sentence to the prince. The prince read the sentence and confirmed it. If the fellow must be executed, execute him. He said, if this fellow is worth desire for the death sentence, let his head to be cut off. But there was only one hitch in the matter, and that was that they had neither a guillotine for cutting heads off nor an executioner. See, here there was one problem. There was a problem to cut off a man's head, because neither had a guillotine. They neither had a guillotine to cut off the head, and an expert to handle the machine. So this was the problem with Monaco. Then the ministers considered the matter. They decided to address an inquiry to the French government. Then the ministers assembled. Here, guillotine ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದು ತಲೆಯನ್ನು ತೆಗಿತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಯಂತ್ರ, ತಲೆಯನ್ನು ಕಟ್ ಮಾಡತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಯಂತ್ರ, ಮತ್ತು ತಲೆಯನ್ನು ತೆಗಿಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆ ಮಷೀನನ್ನು ಹ್ಯಾಂಡಲ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಒಬ್ಬ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪರ್ಟ್ ಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ, ಅದು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದನ್ನು ಕೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಫ್ರೆಂಚ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಕೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಪತ್ರವನ್ನು ಬರೀತಾರೆ. The French kindly informed that French government asking whether the French would not lend them a machine and an expert to cut off the criminal's head. Why they needed this? Why they needed guillotine? to cut off the head of the criminal. And the French kindly informed them what it would cost. ಅವರಿಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇದನ್ನು ಕಳಿಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ನಿಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಹಣ ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಕಳಿಸ್ರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಅವಾಗ ಒಂದು ರಿಪ್ಲೈ ಬಂತು. A week later, the reply came, a machine and an expert to be supplied. They said, the French government, first, the French government replied that it could supply a guillotine and an expert, and the cost would be 16,000 francs for the supply of guillotine and an expert. This was laid before the king. This was put before the king. He thought it over. 16,000 francs. He was surprised. 16,000 francs. It was very costly. The wretch is not worth the money. He thought, this fellow, this rascal is not worth the money. Let he be hanged. Let his head be cut off. Can't it be done cheaper somehow? He thought, why 16,000 francs is more than 2 francs a head on the whole population. If at all the whole population, 7,000 population, if at all we leave the tax 2 francs per each, even though it would be costly, the people won't stand it, and it may cause a riot. ದಂಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು ಮಕ್ಕಳು, ಇನ್ನು ಜನರಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಇಷ್ಟು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಬೇಡ. So council was again called to consider what could be done, and it was decided to send a similar inquiry to the king of Italy. Then the same reply, the king of Italy government. So the same inquiry was sent to the king of Italy. As the king of Italy, the French government is republican and has no proper respect for the king, and it was ruling by the people, so it was not at all proper respect for the king as they thought. But the king of Italy was a brother monarch. They were the brother monarch relations, and might be induced to the things cheaper. The king thought Italy could lend a machine and an expert in a cheaper manner. So the letter was written and a prompt reply was received. So again it was received. The Italy government wrote that they would have pleasure in supplying both a machine and an expert, and the whole cost would be 12,000 francs. See what they replied? They replied 12,000 francs. It is a currency. Franc is a currency in Monaco, France and Italy. It would cost 12,000 francs, including travelling expenses of guillotine machine, supplying of guillotine machine and an expert. Then this was cheaper compared to French government. Still it seemed too much. The rascal was really not worth the money. It would still be nearly 2 francs more per head on the taxes. Another council was called. Again the council was called. Whether there would be a cheaper mean. 13,000 francs is very costly, and 12,000 francs is also costly. If there is any method, if there is any plan to reduce the cost of hanging or executing this person, this rascal. Again another council was called. They discussed, the minister again assembled and discussed, and they considered the matter, how it could be done in a cheaper method, in a less expensive. Could not one of the soldiers perhaps be he got to do in a rough and homely fashion. The general was called and asked. The general, the chief of the army, the head of the army was asked, "Can't you find us a soldier who would cut the man's head off?" The general was asked that, "Can't you find it? Can you give a soldier who would cut off the man's head?" In the war, they don't mind killing the people. The soldiers are meant for the war. They don't mind killing the people in the war field only. In fact, that is what they were taught. They are taught, they are trained for shooting or killing the people in a war field only. So the general talked it over with all the soldiers to see whether one of them would not undertake the job. He asked all the soldiers whether can anybody cut this rascal's head, criminal's head? But none of the soldiers would do it. None of the soldiers would do it. No, they said no, we can't do that. We don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do it. It is not a thing we have been taught. The reply from the soldiers, the reply from the army was that they were not at all trained for cutting the man's off. They were trained only to kill in the warfield only. Then what was to be done? Again the ministers considered and reconsidered. They assembled a commission and a committee and a subcommittee, and at last they decided that the best thing would be to alter the death sentence to one of the imprisonment for life. At the first, a murderer, it was given the death sentence. At first, the murderer was given death sentence. Then, as the death sentence was very costly, so now they thought that it is better to convert the punishment, that is, from death sentence into imprisonment for life. Imprisonment for life. As how the criminal will be, that means he has to die in the jail only until his life. Until his life, he has to be in the jail. He has to be in the prison only. So, such is the case. Okay? Death sentence andre jeevavadi shiksha anta karitive. Imprisonment for life. Sorry. Death